are the coolest dudes on the planet?
United States veterans.
What's the coolest sport on the planet?
Pro wrestling.
And what would be the coolest podcast on the planet? That would be this one.
U.S. military vets talking pro wrestling.
This is the No Shave Man Cave. Two badass disabled vets sharing their love of pro wrestling, giving you their perspective as fans, talking about current events and matches, history of titles, and who knows what else. Let's do it.
Welcome to the No Shave Men Cave. Now your hosts, Ellie Jair and Jay Tilley.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, wrestling fans, and sports entertainment fans, welcome to the No Shave Man Cave. I'm Ellie Jair.
I am Jay Tilley.
Yes, sir. And we are joined, graced, if you will, in the presence of the Jesse, don't call me James Paulson, from a very prestigious Marine Corps career, a Marine Corps Chief Warrant Officer 4, the Quattro, retired. So, Jesse, on behalf of the fam, everybody who's tuning in, as of today, 51,034 downloads, visits, and views, and nearly 100 episodes. So, on behalf of Jay Tilley, thank you, sir, for joining us.
Nice. Yeah, you guys are burning it up.
Yeah, I appreciate you joining us. Like you said, this is kind of our big one. We do it on the 22nd, and it's a big deal for us. It can get a little heavy, but we try to lighten it up and have some fun with it. For those that are just joining us, or maybe this is the first time hearing us on the 22nd show, I do like to start with a disclaimer that none of us are licensed professionals. None of us have any experience in the field. We just three guys coming on kind of telling our story, because there's a big stigmatism's not the right word. There's a big kind of negative connotation when it comes to men and mental health, and a lot of men specifically don't talk about their mental health, and they don't discuss things they're going through or what's going on in their heads. You know, we've always been brought up to be strong and bury our feelings and all that. Well, as we find out, it's not always the healthiest thing to do. All three of us are veterans, have been through a lot and seen a lot and done a lot. And, Jared and I have talked about it and told our stories. And, every time we come on here, I probably slip out another story, and Jared will tell another story. And I know personally he's going through some stuff now too. So this is probably a pretty important one. But, we'll never, and you being our guest on, never want you to talk about anything you don't want to talk about. You don't have to tell your story if you don't want to. If you just want to sit and listen and agree, that's cool too. And that's kind of how it's going to go. So it's just us talking about kind of the things that we feel and do, and maybe some of the things that we have talked to our counselors about, or our family, or things that happened around the month that, made us go, oh man, that's why I reacted this way to whatever it was. So just want to keep that up front and make sure everybody understands we are not licensed. We will drop the 988 and some resources, and usually in the tweet or the comments or wherever I end up putting, we'll put some links for anybody that needs help or wants help to reach out and do that. So that being said, usually I start off with one, but I'm doing okay right now. There's stress at work is what it is, but lately I've been coming on here and in the past 3 shows that we've done, kind of starting us off with some of the things I've been going through and experiencing. Mine have actually been pretty good lately. I'm in a good place. I am talking to somebody now, which I think is helping. And I've also, they did diagnose me with some depression. So kind of knew in back of my head it was going on, but having the actual diagnosis was like, okay. And then we kind of, through talking to my counselors, found some of those triggering mechanisms. And it's something interesting we talked about maybe a month or 2 ago, that when I left the military, it was a big adjustment for me. And we've talked about how when other people leave the military, it's kind of a big hit on the mental state of members. And what my therapist and everything was talking about is how we go from this job of having a place and knowing what we're doing and having a purpose to not. And in my case, specifically, when I went through my retirement, I didn't get a retirement party. I didn't get a ceremony. I didn't even get to say goodbye to my unit, because at the time COVID was going on and I wasn't with my unit. So I got my paperwork in the mail and boom, done. So after talking to her, I'm like, well, yeah, all this makes a lot of sense. There is that sense of something missing. And that's kind of what led to some of the issues. Obviously, there's other stuff throughout my career, but that was one of the big triggering points that has led to some of the things that I've noticed myself doing, which is, I'll get home from work sometimes and I always used to chalk it up to, oh, I'm stressed out at work or whatever. But here it is like, no, it's part of the mental issues I'm having, which is segregating myself from the family, not going out and doing social things. Like, prime example is, we talked about right before we came on, we did WrestleMania, I think, at Jared's house. And I'm not going to lie, I was like, man, I really don't want to go. I don't want to go. Well, that's part of the disease telling me not to go participate in those things. Like, you don't want to do that. You just want to go sit in your room and not worry about it. Watch it by yourself, be alone. And talking, to people about it, it's like, you need to break that habit. You need to go out and do those socializing things and have a support structure. So that was, one of the things I've learned and I'm trying to do. And it's still tough. I mean, even the WrestleCon just recently, I was like, Jared can't go and I don't really want to go. And I'm like, no, I need to go. One, we paid for the tickets, and two, my daughter really wanted to go. And man, it turned out to be great. I met a lot of cool people. I didn't bring it up here. I took the belt, had it signed, and, got to talk to Thunder Rosa, who's a wrestler that in AEW. Right now, she's doing the commentary in the Spanish announce team. She had me on her vlog live right there. So talking about our show. Yeah, there's the belt. Talking about our show and talking about what we are doing and that we talk about mental health. And now it's come out that she wants us to join her show and maybe come and tell a little bit about what we're doing. So I'm like, hey, that's one of those instances where I'm glad I did what I did. And I had a blast. We had a really good time. My daughter and I had a really good time. And we usually do when we do those things. And that's one of those things that, again, it's the disease of saying, no, don't go. And you just got to break through that. And I think, as men in general, and everybody, women too, but men, like I said, it's usually like, well, you gotta be quiet about your feelings. And especially you two being Marines, it's probably even a little harder. I mean, I was soft Air Force, but you guys are probably, a little more. And it's funny. I told Jairus the other day, like, he's probably one of the most well-adjusted Marines I've ever met. Cause I've met a couple that are, woof, you're like, yo, I ain't even talking to that guy. So, I just appreciate us doing this, and I appreciate you coming on to talk to us. Yeah, I went on my spiel.
Yeah, dude. To everybody, for whatever it's worth, to Jay Tilly, I'm like, I don't want to say proud, but I am proud of you because I've never met a stranger, and the fact that you got out of your comfort zone, especially with your daughter, and your daughter is just a wrestler magnet because of the energy that she projects, generally with a sign and a wrestling t-shirt. Darby Allin, if you're listening, she probably wouldn't mind an autograph from her brother. But yeah, so cool. And I'm glad you did that on behalf of the No Shave Man Cave. I thought that was pretty sweet. So
cool. Yeah, it was a good time. We had a blast. And she so real quick funny story, and then I'll let Jesse talk, I promise. So we're at the show. She'll probably get really embarrassed I said this. And there's a kind of a local wrestler. He does a little independent, Hate Hogan, I think his name is. Well, I had stopped I think I was texting you about the Thunder Rosa thing or something, and I'm stopped and I was doing something, and I hear she's standing next to me, and I hear the two guys behind me, and it's Hate Hogan and another guy with him, and he goes, oh, I caught you, and I look over, and she turns beet red, and he's like, she just looked at your ass like 4 times. And she's like, no, I didn't. Oh my gosh. Every time we walk by, they harassed her like, you looking again, huh? So really funny. It was cool to have that interaction. And that was one of those like, oh, because then of course I'm laying in on her like, you're staring, huh? And he's going off like, the first and second time I understand, but the third time that was an honor. It was good stuff. Anyway, yeah, I'll open the floor up. We got a guest on, and I've been talking for like the first 10 minutes. So again, whatever you're comfortable sharing, not sharing, that's cool. I mean, it's up to you.
Yeah, it's it's an interesting topic, right? Like I know both you guys, have your space for ink on your bodies is running low, right? Where I'm still a blank canvas. I have 0 tattoos, right? 25 years in the Marine Corps, and I don't have a single tattoo, right? I've been wanting to get one, and like kind of the first one I talked about getting was a kind of a memorial tattoo, right? And the problem is I'm kind of split on it, and it leads right into our topic, right? So I have, this side of, brothers that were, KIA, they're actually killed in action, either in Afghanistan or Iraq, or, police officers that, had their end of watch in the line of duty as a police officer that were also former Marines or somebody who's close, important to me. And there's kind of a bond and a brotherhood between, I think, military guys, police officers, firefighters, stuff like that, people who have some of that selfless service. So, I've got this list of names, Sergeant Chris Herbeck, Staff Sergeant Timothy McGill. Both these guys are guys I recruited. Chris Goodell, he was a guy I recruited. He was a police officer up in Bergen County, New Jersey. Ray McGill, he was a police lieutenant up in Mahwah, New Jersey also. But then I've got this other side, right? I've got, and that's me trying to figure out, this tattoo I want, because I'd like to honor all these guys. They were all important to me at some point in my life. And, but it's not a tattoo I want to put together, right? It's two totally different things. While I may not understand my friends who have taken their own life, I don't understand their decision, and I can't rationalize it. Obviously to them, that was what they saw as the solution. So, I've got this other list of names, both Marines, probably 3 Marines and 2 or 3 friends that I grew up with, who are always kind of bopping around in my head that their life led them to a point where they thought they didn't have any other choice but to do what they did. Another Marine who worked for me back when I was a gunny, he's actually a tattoo artist down, and he's a part owner, I think, a tattoo place called the Alamo down in Gainesville. And I've been kind of talking to him about it, and he's willing to draw me something out. I can't figure.
Did I just hear road trip?
We're going to Gainesville. But yeah, how do I balance those two out, right? Like, to memorialize them all, but the sacrifice of the guys that were killed in action, that's a sacrifice. The other guys, it's something different that I don't want to label. I mean, maybe in private conversation, I'll say some things, because I can't understand it, and I can never rationalize it. I can I can see where somebody would want to do that, but at the same time, it's a hard thing for me to like I said, rationalize. Something that was said during Jay Tilley, when you were talking, you were saying about you didn't have much closure on your career. I lucked out, and Jared was here for a bunch of it, right? I retired. I went on terminal leave September of 2019, so hadn't heard of COVID at that point. It was the perfect timing. I did my retirement ceremony on one of the ships right here at Blunt Island. Jared was actually my retiring officer. Got up there, and usually like retiring officers, they get up there, they say the little spiel, and they hand it over to you, like they speak for a few minutes. Jared spoke for about 15 seconds. He's like, I'm gonna hand it over to Jesse. And then I took all of his time too. I probably spent a good 15, 20 minutes, much to the chagrin of the Marines standing in formation, to thank all the people I thought I needed to thank. But did that, had good closure with that at the unit there on Blunt Island. And then I did kind of like a family and friends retirement ceremony up at the Marine Museum in Quantico in October or November of that year, where I also renewed my vows with my wife. A lot of big things on that day, and spent the weekend up in Baltimore visiting family. So I lucked out with that, and then right into a job. I actually followed that up with a week up in Philly during the Marine Corps birthday, and got to go see the site of the Old Ton Tavern and the Marine Corps birthday celebration they do at I can't think of the name of the tavern right off the top of my head, but thousands of jarheads up there drinking beer, smoking cigars, and other things, and just having a good time, and spent that with a group of Marines I was stationed with back in the late 90s. So I was lucky in that aspect. And then a year later, I had to watch what Jared was going through, trying to retire in the height of the pandemic, like 2020, right? It was, and there wasn't, the vaccine wasn't out yet. I mean, we were, trying to be as social distant as possible. Jared's oldest was able to come home and participate actually in the ceremony, but it was a neutered ceremony, if you will, because of, all of the regulations and stuff and best practices that were in place. So I definitely see what you're talking about on that. I definitely deal with my own mental health issues, although I think I suppress them more than I deal with them. I had a therapist or counselor or somebody, when I was going through all the retirement appointments, had said, well, talking to you, like, yeah, you definitely, you definitely got issues, pretty much what they were saying. However, they're like, the time you grew up and how you grew up, you were kind of, latchkey kid, you were one of those kids who was home at a young age by yourself. I'm talking like elementary school, probably at 7, 8 years old, like having a key to the house to let myself in. Me and my sister, who was a year and a half older than me, and kind of doing mild things for herself. Like we weren't cooking anything on the stove or anything like that, or wasn't out there operating heavy machinery as a 7-year old. But parents had work to do. But what they had said was, yeah, like your coping skills is really is what gets you by. It's like you definitely have your mental health issues, but you have developed a set of coping skills that allow you to, like I'm doing now, making light of it, right? Like I push through it, which I'm sure, much of my career was like that, like just, all right, I'm just going to push through it. Like this isn't that difficult. So I think that's what I do with a lot of it. I just push my head down and either throw myself into work or a certain hobby at some point. Definitely, mental health and ADHD, obviously they're related, different to what we're talking about today, but definitely undiagnosed attention deficit issues that I'm kind of starting to more medicinally cope with here in my, this part of my life, and realize I'm like, oh, wow, I could have done something much different if I had been medicated at a younger age, right? I could have maybe went to college right out of high school instead of graduating with like a 1.8 GPA. So I am starting to find a little more balance here in life, and I'm thankful for my bride, for my wife Ellen. We've been married for 20 years now, and she's helped me with a lot of things, especially in parenting. She just my parents were yellers. They like to yell about everything. They like to yell about everything. They like to control what their kids were doing. Like, to what end? I don't understand it. Like, maybe, I don't know what they thought we were doing. Like, turning the light switch on and off a bunch of times was going to damage something. I don't know, but they'd yell about it, or I'd get punished like the whole summer. Like, being like 8 years old, like, you're grounded for the entire summer vacation. It's like, who is that good for? I mean, there's guys that, commit felonies and are locked up for less time than that. And here I am, 7 years old, and I, whatever, was lighting matches in the basement. Now that's a safety issue. I wasn't burning anything down or whatever, but they really, like, they were yellers. And that was one place where I think my wife helped me a lot, to where I wasn't like that. Like, she told me very early on, choose your battles, right? And if your kids aren't, in risking life or limb, or, if it's not causing any harm, or maybe they're making a mess, like, big deal. That was a big one, right? My parents would get mad at like messes, spill your drink at the dinner table, and they would lose their shit. I'm like, I'm not that coordinated, right? I don't have great hand-eye coordination at this point. And maybe, maybe my dad, right, my stepdad did, because he grew up playing sports and, baseball, football, all that stuff. And he always wanted me to play all those things. And I played baseball until high school, and I could never get into it because I wasn't good at it, right? And I think that was kind of disappointing to him. That wasn't the reason he was a yeller. He was a yeller probably because, his parents were, like, greatest generation type parents, right? World War II vets and stuff like that. So those were all undiagnosed mental health issues back then, right? Everybody, like, your parents beat the snot out of you back in the day. And I think, our parents maybe got a little better at it and didn't go so far. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still took my my share of whoopings for things that I did, but I can say 100% I never laid a hand on either one of my kids. Neither had my wife. They've never known the end of a spanking, and barely known punishment. Maybe I'm lucky. Maybe they were pretty good kids. They didn't get into things. They didn't sneak out of the house. They weren't bad kids. And my oldest daughter is now school teacher. She teaches high school orchestra, and my youngest daughter Bailey is super artistic and funny and creative, and she's still finding her way into what she wants to do, but moving forward anyway. But yeah, so hopefully we're breaking the cycle of our own parents, mental health issues pushing down on us kids that were raised in the 80s. And maybe we are, maybe we're not. I guess time will tell. But they seem like they're more well adjusted. They're also more willing to seek help. I think this younger generation is more willing to go and seek help with a therapist or medication and stuff also. So good or bad, good, bad, or indifferent, medications, chemical imbalances that are righted by the correct medication, can be hugely beneficial, when done properly. But I'm kind of strayed way off from topics of the 22nd, right, or and 22, which I don't know about that number 22. I think I've read some stuff back and forth where it's maybe not as bad as people say it is. Don't get me wrong. I realize veteran suicide. Just me being able to count probably at least 4 or 5 guys on one hand that have taken their lives that were veterans, either had gotten out of the Marine Corps or had done it while they were still on active duty. Is not an insignificant amount. 22 a day. Just some of the things I had read, it said, well, it's not well substantiated how they came up with that number, could be plus or minus. I don't know. Either way, 5 a day, not good, is, needs to be addressed. And I'm glad they're addressing. I'm glad, or that it's getting more more notoriety, I guess, out there. My problem is with it, kind of like the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, right? Like, I think the whole meaning of the challenge was I think it got lost, right? All these people were just like, oh, I'm dumping a bucket of ice on my head and not doing anything for the whole ALS thing, not giving any money to it, not doing anything. So people are like, yeah, remember 22 or 22 push-ups a day. It's like, yeah, you're doing 22 push-ups a day and you're posting it on Facebook. But I guess it's awareness, right? You are raising awareness, but everybody's like, hey, cool, he's doing push-ups, for 22, veteran suicides a day. But what are they doing with that, right? Is it going to any organizations out there? Has any organizations that help to better or tackle veteran mental health and suicide problems? Are they benefiting anything from these 22 a day challenges and things like that? I'd be interested to know, because in my job we're all about data and metrics and things like that. I'd like to see the data on it. Maybe it's not fleshed out enough to see exactly what it is, because there's a ton of homeless veterans and stuff like that too, and there's just stuff you don't hear about, or people don't care enough, or they didn't have people in their lives that cared enough about them to to say whether it was one way or the other, or I don't know, lots of things out there. But sorry, I've been rambling for a good couple of minutes now. Apologize.
No, it's all good. Yeah, I agree. I think the awareness is a big thing, and I agree with the number, the 22. We don't know. I don't know the history where it came from. I know it was drilled into our heads when I was going through our suicide prevention in the military. That was the number. But like you said, even 5, even 1 is too many. And I think bringing awareness is good. But some of these, I think kind of what Jared and I want to do is through this medium let people know that it's okay to talk about it. And if you're going through that, because like you said, I don't understand it either. I've gone through some pretty lows, and suicide was never on my mind. But Jeremy, the Georgia Tickler, as we like to call him, who is usually on our show on the 22nd, he was a suicide survivor. He did attempt it. They got him to the hospital in time. And, at the time when it happened, and I remember him actually his wife is an ex-wife now, but she called me and told me what had happened. And he had tried to take his own life, and they put him in the hospital and all this. And I was just like, I was mad. I'm like, whatever. Why would you get that low? I don't understand. Talk to people. But then you talk to him now, and I talked to him when they released him from the hospital. I went up there and I spent a couple days up there, and you find out that chemical imbalance is one of it. They had him on some medications that some of the chemicals were not right. But as you talk to him, you find out that it was so bad that he really did think it was time to go, and that people would be better off. And that's all part of this mental illness thing. And even now, every once in a while I'll talk to him, I'm like, I still don't get why you didn't just reach out to me. He's like, you wouldn't have understood. I'm like, yeah, but I would have. It would have been an ear, someone to talk to and listen to. And that's kind of what we want to start doing with this is, hey, if you need help, reach out and make sure you're getting that help, because it is preventable, and you are loved. Somebody out there loves you enough to not want to see you go. So yeah, it's a heavy subject, and you know, I'm right there with you. I don't understand it. I love my kids and my family, and you know, I think I've got some. You said coping skills, and I chuckle. I'm like, yeah, I'm same way. I'm pretty good at shoving it down and making it go away and doing other things with it. And like the more I talk about it, I'm like, oh, that coping skill may not be the best thing I'm doing, but it works to keep it hidden, you know. So, but yeah. It's cool to talk, not cool. It's good to talk about it, I think, and let other people know that they're not alone, especially in the veteran community. Because, you know, like I said in the beginning, we're all drilled to, you know, shut our mouths, suck it up, and push on. That's not always the best way to deal with it. And you had mentioned how the newer generation is more likely to ask for help and more likely to do, you know, whatever they need to do to get their mental health right. And I think it's great. And I think our generation, maybe the generation before us, not so much, because it's probably too late for a lot of them to fix some of their issues, but our generation still got time now to kind of course correct, maybe fix some of those damaged relationships, maybe things that, you know, like, for example, I'm sure my daughter's and I relationship has gotten better recently since the military left, but looking back, there were times where, you know I was shut down in birthday parties and Christmas and all that. I just didn't care. I didn't want to be there. Didn't want to give out presents, and that's because I had so much other going on. I look back, I'm like, okay, I was depressed back then too, but, you know, for different reasons. So now I'm kind of knowing, like, okay, hey, let's go do wrestling. Let's do something together instead of me shutting everybody out and doing it myself. Yeah.
Yeah, each and every outlet that we can come up with, whether it's an outlet for ourselves.
Oh, we just lost your audio. Are you there, Jared? We can't hear you. Oh, we lost your audio. Yep. Now you're back. We got everybody's outlet. Oh, you're gone again. All right. Nope, now you're back.
Yes. So everybody's outlet is a little bit different. You know, when I was a kid, it was you need to go out and play. My sons, so I thought, well, they're just active boys. They don't need to be medicated. And they would go play sports, and they did all this stuff outside, very interactive with whatever community we were in because we moved so much. So their social skills were exponentially better than mine were. And I was the youngest child, and my siblings that I looked up to the most were all in the military. So that's what drew me to want to join the military in part. And our family was so competitive. Not only do I want to join the military, but I want to outdo everybody. So that was sort of the bond between my brothers, Todd and Mike, and I. And they would go on. My brother Todd was a sergeant. My brother Mike was a corporal. And I was fortunate to continue on moving up the ranks and had a really fun, very, very fun career. My sister made it to sergeant first class in the Army, but she lived two polar opposite lives. So she grew up in the closet her whole entire life, didn't share anything until much later on after she'd retired from the Army and was working for the Postal Service. And it sort of started becoming a little more normalized. But by that point, you know, she had dealt with so much in her life negative, plus, like we were talking about earlier, a little bit of chemical imbalance. And she would end up, unfortunately, taking her life. And it was one of those things where it hits you like, and we talked about this, you know, a few minutes ago, and Jesse brought it up like, well, wait a minute. Why would you do that? That makes no sense. Or like Jay Tilley was like, well, you could have just said something. And you think back, well, maybe they did, or maybe they didn't, or maybe they did and you didn't pick up on it or whatever. So, you know, to everybody who's listening, to everybody who's watching, you know, someone, like Jay Tilley said, someone loves you, someone's thinking of you, and someone wants to see you tomorrow. So what are you going to do to make it to tomorrow? You're going to address it today. And this Remember 22 isn't meant to be, oh, I can't believe you're dragging out and dragging in and bringing up dirt and doing that. No. It's bringing attention to a situation that's going on. Well, what does this have to do with pro wrestling? Well, pro wrestling, like football, like basketball, like even soccer to a certain extent, athletes develop head trauma, develop CTE on top of all this other undiagnosed stuff, and they get this signal in their head that says today's the day. Well, let's make today's signal. If you're dealing with anything, please dial pound 988, get the help you need. If you're a veteran, go to your app, My Healthy Vet app, or go to va.org and right across the top banner, click it. There's a red banner, and you will be directed immediately to get help. There isn't anything wrong with asking help. there are things that we can't do by ourselves. You know, I can't move a couch by myself. Oh, you're so weak. I can't believe it. You're right. I'm weak. I can't move a couch by myself. You know, it's, I think this is really cool. I look forward to this show probably more than any other show, definitely more than any other show. And, you know, even with everything that I got going on, and, you know, I talked to the fam out here earlier, and Mrs. Ellie Jair is dealing with pancreatic cancer. She made it through the surgery. She's at home. She's recuperating well. Thank you to Dr. Awad and the UF Health crew. And we're gonna get through this. We'll be rocking some purple. And I may or may not have to relinquish the beard once we hit the chemo phase, but we're going to do this together. And just like Tiff getting through what she's dealing with, you know, we'll get through every 22 together. And, you know, appreciate Thunder Rosa acknowledging and, you know, giving us props and signing the belt, you know, doing some really cool stuff. And everybody else, too, with the positive feedback. Jay Tilley's got some other folks he wanted to shout out. But, you know, this is, you know, Jesse, I really appreciate you coming on. Jesse and I go back, 2008, 2009. 2009, I think we met.
I met you at Jill St. John's retirement practice, right?
Yep. Yeah. So I couldn't be a luckier mofo for having you and Ellen, you know, in my life and in Tiff's life as well. So everybody's got somebody that makes them better. You know, Jesse's got Ellen. I got Tiff, Jay Tilley's got Amy and his crew, and there's just so much out there. So we can find the positive in everything if we just look. There's a silver lining in everything. So no matter what it is that you're dealing with, what I'm dealing with in both my personal, professional life in general, I wouldn't want anyone else to deal with it because I think it was brought to me because I can handle it. But I'm not going to do it alone. I got Jay Tilley, I got Jesse, I got, you know, everybody who helps me out on a day-to-day basis. Tiff is, you know, as strong as a ox, you know, both physically and emotionally and mentally. And then Coden and Rylan are handling it like a boss. So keep that in mind whenever you're dealing with something. I'm fortunate to have an awesome tag team partner in JT in the No Shave Man Cave and everything we're doing with Veterans Championship Wrestling. To our peeps over, I'm rocking one of our Mission 22 shirts. Thank you so much. Liv Bearded just is working on something with us to try and you know, bring a little more attention and light to what we're trying to do on the 22nd of every month. So hope everybody who's listening is enjoying the show. Yes, we do, you know, get a little deep, you know, a little bit in our feels, and it's not quite as fun as, you know, how awesome Dynamite was or how amazing the debut episode of Collision was. And if you haven't watched either one of those, good night. You got to go do it. And to the boys over at What Culture, that up and down of Collision last night was awesome. And yeah, we got an awesome week going into the weekend of professional wrestling. Going into next week, WWE is doing some good stuff. Impact is doing some stuff. But what are they doing to get to that? They're working together and they're talking about their issues and using social media. And that's, you know, what we're here doing today. And, you know, I'm looking forward to this road trip. I was thinking, because I have this little spot right here on my right forearm I need to fill. So, yeah.
I've got a spot on my calf that I'm actually doing a memorial to for my buddy who passed away just recently. So I've been working on that too. I'm like, oh man, I'm working on one of those too. So I got a spot on my calf already picked out. I just got to go see Veronica Day down there in Plant City. Shout out to Vicious Vanity Inc. She does all my work. So I got to set up some time to go see her. Ink therapy is what I call it. But yeah, man, one of the things you said is asking for help. And I think that's a big one. Like, people tend to look at asking for help as a weakness, but I tend to think it's the opposite. Like, I think when you ask for help, you're self-aware enough and strong enough to know that you need that help. And that's one of those things that you know, we want to drill into people's head. But, you know, like you said, everybody out there has somebody, whether you want to believe it or not, that is caring about you and wants you to succeed and see you the next day. So yeah, good show, man. I know we usually go an hour, but unless you guys have stuff you want to cover, I'm good with wrapping. I think it was pretty good. I think I really appreciate Jesse being on. I like having, you know, other people on to talk instead of just him and I all the time. So it's good to have other veterans on specifically and talk about it and know that you've gone through some things and lost some people. Matter of fact, last 22nd show I had just found out that somebody in my former unit had taken their own lives the weekend right before that. In the hotel room, they got some documentation, went to the hotel room. There was a reservist and decided that documentation was the last thing they could take. So it does happen, not necessarily just retired veterans, currently serving members out there. So we usually say it in the show, but if you are on active service or anything, you've got your chaplains to reach out to. 988 works for you also. Go find your first sergeant, whoever you need to talk to, get the help you need. This world would not be better without you. So, just, I know it's easier said than done. Trust me. And I've said it before. If you're not sure who to reach out to, again, I will reiterate, we're not licensed. We are not sponsored by anybody. We are not representatives of anybody. But if you emailed us, I will find the right people to put you in touch with. NoShaveManCave@gmail.com. So I'll put it around. And any other last words? If not, I'll wrap us up.
No, I'm all set here, fellas. I appreciate the invite. Appreciate the chance to be on the show. I've listened to several of the episodes. My commute has gotten shorter and shorter lately. I've been hitting it at the right time, so I don't have much opportunity to listen to things in and out. And when I do, I try to increase my knowledge with some sort of book or something like that. Most recently, I'm trying to think what book I read most recently that was not some kid's book that I'm trying to read to relate, so I could be on the same page with my daughters. But Kill Chain was probably the most recent one, which is, military industrial kind of, looking at, but not giving any shout out to that guy or anything. It's a good book. It's worth a read, but I need to pick back up where I was on the show and catch up a little bit. I don't know enough about wrestling to understand a lot of it though, but I do appreciate it. I appreciate the art of it.
Yeah, we need to have you come on one of these times and we can talk about the wrestlers that you do remember or can relate to during the first 5 WrestleManias or whatever. Jay Tilly and I are talking about. Yeah, that's my guy right there. Got his title. We're supposed to link up with him here shortly. So
I have his G.I. Joe
Sarge, if you're listening,
somewhere.
Let's go.
Nice.
Yo, Joe. Yeah, Sergeant Slaughter, you got another fan over here as part of the No Shave Man Cave. So super cool. We'd like to have you on as a regular contributor if you ever get a few minutes, even if it's 10, 15 minutes. Have you come on, talk some smack, and let us know what's going on in your life. So I really appreciate you coming on, and let's wrap it up, brother.
Yeah, man. So Sergeant Slaughter, speaking of him, I got a picture of him. He signed for me and everything too. And he's a pretty good Twitter follow because I think he follows everybody that follows him back. And he's pretty cool to interact with. So, but speaking of Twitter, that's where you can find us most of the time. No Shave Man Cave on Twitter. We're also on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Rumble, which hopefully you know those, so you're already out there watching. But if not, if you're on YouTube and want to watch us on Rumble or vice versa, check us out. Give us the views on both. Appreciate everybody. Like you said, about 50,000 downloads on the podcast. Jared kind of mentioned it earlier. We have backed off on our schedule a little bit, so we will start ramping up a little bit more. Had some life stuff to deal with, which happens. So we took a step back. Not that this isn't a priority, but their family is more of a priority, so we had to make sure Mrs. Ellie Jair was taken care of and in a good place, and we will pick it back up. May not go every day again. We may just slowly get back into the swing, but we're definitely going to start doing our Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday shows for sure. Appreciate everybody. You want to get the audio version of the podcast, No Shave Man Cave, wherever you get your podcast from, Apple, Amazon, Google, wherever you get it from. You can just look us up, No Shave Man Cave. Again, email if you want to reach out to us, noshavemancave@gmail.com. Appreciate it. I love the fan mail. And same thing, if it's a mental health issue, you're not sure where to go, hit us up. Between the two of us, and then with Jesse as a third, we will find a veterans organization or a civilian organization, because I want to make sure that that's clear too. It's not just for veterans. It's for everybody that has mental health issues. So reach out. If you don't know where to go, we will make sure we will find you a direction to go into. I'm going to wrap it up and say, again, we are not licensed or anything. We just want to tell our stories and let you know that it is okay to not be okay. And with that, I'm going to hot tag it out for Ellie Jair to take us home.
Bump and feed. Yes, sir. I love that line.
Oh, man, your audio went out. Can't hear you. So I know he was saying it's okay to not be okay. Hey, now you're back. We lost you in your audio again. We got it's okay to not be okay and then silence.
Yeah. So like what Jay Tilley said, I love the line, it's okay to not be okay. To our brothers and sisters in arms, thank you so much for what you do for this country. Some gave all gave some, and I want everybody to know you're loved somewhere, and make sure you make it back to where you left today because you're needed. So until next time, fam, we'll see you back here. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll see you on the floor.
You've been listening to the No Shave Men Cave.
If it's pro wrestling, we're talking about it. Unless we see something shiny and wander off into the woods. If you hang around long enough, we'll eventually come back. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Fire off your comments and be sure to leave us a 5-star rating, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit us up on Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok at No Shave Men Cave. Y'all be cool, and we'll see you next time on the No Shave Men Cave.